Night 4, the final night of the Republican National Convention, just moments away. The opera singing you just heard will give way to speeches, and then the president. We'll be carrying all of it here on Fox, so stay tuned. So riots across the country for the last 3 months raise the question, why do we have police? Well, we hire cops to clean up the messes the rest of us create. When people don't get married before they have kids and their fatherless sons turn violent, or when big business offshores blue-collar jobs and entire communities collapse, it is the police who deal with the consequences. Not all cops are good at their jobs, obviously. But in the end, the big problems are not their fault. Most of them are just working-class guys doing their best. Unfortunately for them, working-class guys are Donald Trump's base, and the Democratic Party hates them for that, particularly in an election year. So to neutralize them, the left has constructed an absurd, a baseless but elaborate lie designed to convince you that the police are the real problem in this country. Amazingly, an awful lot of people have fallen for it. That's why there are no cops around anymore. The result of that? Chaos. Dozens dead. Kids in the streets with guns. America's cities on fire. Why did that happen? Because the left neutered the police. That's why it happened. None of these cities looked like this 3 months ago, not until they did this. The consequences are their fault. They're not your fault. They're not the fault of the police. They're the fault of the academic left that made this possible across the country. Kenosha, Wisconsin is the latest place it's happened. Here's some of what happened in that city this week. So who did that? Who turned a nice little town like Kenosha, Wisconsin into a hellscape where 17-year-olds are shooting people? You didn't do that. The cops didn't do that. The left did that. They destroyed that city. They abetted the violence you saw the other night. Period. They made the cops go away, and when the cops left, lunacy filled the void. Period. They're denying that now, but they're lying, as usual. The media didn't even want to cover it. Mostly they didn't. So the job of covering the riots fell to people like Julio Rosas. He's a senior writer at Town Hall. He was there. He joins us for an update on what's happened in Kenosha. Julio, thanks so much for coming on. So what's the state of the city tonight?
So I flew out of Kenosha this morning, and last night was largely peaceful. There were still gatherings past curfew, and but it was, they had a march. They marched throughout the street, but I didn't see any confrontations between officers or protesters or even armed civilians, as unfortunately we saw Tuesday night. And so I think that was the result of Trump sending in more reinforcements, and because people seemingly are more scared after the multiple shootings that happened on Tuesday.
So from our perspective, and in talking to others who were there, it looks like predictably violence filled the void left by legitimate law enforcement. There was no one around to keep order, so of course violence exploded. Was that your impression being there?
Absolutely. I mean, this could have been stopped on Monday night because the rioting broke out on Sunday, and instead of asking for the reinforcements necessary, the police were mostly kept to protect the county courthouse and the precinct, and so that left the rest of the downtown area at the mercy of rioters, and multiple buildings were burned. A lot of property was damaged. They particularly were like to target parking lots filled with cars, and so and then we saw that again a little bit on Tuesday night, and we saw, and I was only a few feet away from the site of the second shooting, and it was just chaos. It was absolute anarchy, and so I mean, this is really the result of poor leadership at both the local and the state level.
Of course it is. It looks scary as hell from the pictures, was it?
As you know, Tucker, I've been traveling all across the country, Minneapolis, Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles, New York, and this was second to Minneapolis. And the only reason why Minneapolis is still number one in my book is just because of how large scale. It was on a much bigger scale, but Kenosha, of all places, it turns out to be number 2 in my book in terms of just absolute anarchy.
Of all places, exactly. Thanks so much for that. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're safe.
Thank you, Tucker.